budget insurance. Affordable because you can't afford not to.
Hello and welcome to the Cars.co.za YouTube channel. My name is Ciro de Siena, I think that's how you pronounce it. And you are looking at me sitting inside the new Porsche 911 GTS. Now before I carry on, remember that Cars.co.za has the #1 auto app on the App Store. We're also, of course, on the Apple App Store, whatever it's called. Go check it out. You find all our used cars there, and it also has a constantly updated new car specs and pricing tool as well. Right, here we go. 911 Sport Mode, Sport Plus Mode, drop a gear. Woo-hee-hee! Oh, yes! That's a nice noise. Okay, quite quick as well. Now, have you ever noticed that the language as humans that we use to describe cars is often the same language that we use to describe animals? So for instance, we might say that car is a beast, or we might say, look at those rear haunches. You know, all these words come from the animal kingdom, so to speak. And as I mentioned that, I look in my rearview mirror and the rear haunch on this particular car looks particularly good. But Porsches, on the other hand, for me, do not seem like animals. They don't feel like animals. And sometimes Porsches get derided a bit for being too clinical, although I don't think that's entirely fair. But what I would describe, or how I would describe a Porsche, is as an absolute machine. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. In fact, I think if there was a robot versus human war, I think Porsches would side with the robots. I do. So Porsche have given me the all-wheel drive version of the GTS to sample, and this is quite interesting for me because I've never actually driven a normal 911. The only other 911 we have on the channel is the GT3 RS, which is a car which absolutely blew my mind. But let's be honest, you don't particularly want a GT3 RS for everyday driving, whereas this is the kind of Porsche that you can drive every day. Oh, that is good shove. I'm an angry flat six. Wow, that corner really tightens on you. Now, what I've really come to respect about Porsches is how much front-end bite they manage to engineer into the chassis. I mean, the engine is literally hanging out the back of the car, and yet the front end feels so poised. You always know what the front wheels and tires are up to. It's so easy to place the front of the car with absolute precision. And that is just brilliant. So you can buy a GTS with a manual gearbox. It's got a short throw adaptation, and even the gear lever is a little bit shorter. So yes, you can buy a very pure GTS if you like one. And I'd imagine that's very appealing to some people. I've got the PDK in this, and Porsche's PDK box is also just a marvel of engineering. It's so fast. So they've cranked up the power a bit for this generation. 22 kilowatts up, you now have 353 kilowatts. We'll put the horsepower figure on the screen, and a very healthy 570 Newton meters. And that means that with the all-wheel drive and with Porsche's PDK, this car will get from 0 to 100 in 3.3 seconds. That's fast, and onto a top speed of 311 kilometers an hour, which is also very, very quick. Now, of course, you don't need all the fireworks all the time, and when you have this car in normal mode, it's a very easy, very comfortable, very quiet car to drive, well, relatively quiet. And If you like to have it in comfort mode but still have your pipes on, there is a pipe button up here on the dashboard, but that also automatically goes on when you choose Sport or Sport Plus. I like the little drive mode selector down here. That's nice. That's very, very easy to access. You don't have to sort of faff with the infotainment system if you want to quickly change driving modes. Yeah, this car is very, very quick. I wouldn't say lightning quick, but obviously, you know, if you want lightning quick, you can go up a level and get yourself the Porsche Turbo S. And interestingly, this car has the brakes from the Porsche Turbo S, which is nice. And the front brake discs are very nearly 16 inches in diameter. 16 inches of stopping power. Mad! Oh, chasing that 7,000 red line. Gosh, this thing is good. Okay, second gear, 3,000 RPM. We're at 46 k's an hour. Foot flat. Good Lord. 0 to 100 in 3.3, 0 to 200 just over 11 seconds. Woo! Welcome to the cabin of the new Porsche 911 GTS. And the first thing you notice as you get in as a driver is that they've stuck with this really cool, really historic, sort of iconic 5-dial arrangement, which is in this curved amphitheater in front of you, and they've put the tachometer, the rev counter, center. It's nice and big. It's still analog. It's got this beautiful bezel around it. It's a really nice piece of design. It feels very driver focused. The steering wheel is also very driver focused. It's actually quite thin rimmed, quite a lot thinner than you might experience in, say, a BMW M car. And they've gone with a full Alcantara finish on as well, so it's very, very nice and grippy. Over to the center column, I love this new switch gear. Look at the detail on the end here. It feels like sort of also been carved from solid steel as well. Everything in this cabin sort of has a feel of solidity to it, except the gear knob, which is very small and a bit naff, but that's how things are these days, apparently, in the Volkswagen group. I also like that they've stuck with some knobs. You know, it's a little bit easier to adjust things on the move when you've got knobs to work with. And then the Porsche infotainment system has been simplified as well, and what they've done is they've made an effort to make all the buttons and all the things you need to select a bit bigger, so they're easier to stab at when you're on the move. And I must be honest, of all the infotainment systems that I encounter in my day-to-day job, this is one of the most intuitive and one of the easiest to use and one of the most self-explanatory. Don't know why you can turn on the sports exhaust there when you can also just do it there. That seems like that's a bit redundant, but anyway, it could just be me. One drinks holder over there for the passenger. The driver's drinks holders over here. A little bit of a center bin with your wireless charging pad, although there's not much in there. Hey, my water! Been looking for that all day. I'm very thirsty. And unlike the Taycan, which we experienced recently, you don't have to go and faff in the infotainment system to adjust the angle that the air comes out of the vents, which was quite possibly one of the most unnecessary things I've ever seen on a car. So I'm glad they've stuck with analog air vents in here. But it really is a particularly nice sports car interior. It is very austere, as German sort of interiors tend to be. It's completely monochrome in here, except for all your lights on your dashboard. But everything is just right. The driving position is just right. Everything is just set up for you to have the best driving experience you can with a flat 6 3-liter turbo just chasing you around everywhere, just following you around. You know, with a starting price for the GTS of about 2.3 million, 2.2 million, up to 2.4 for this, for the all-wheel drive, then you can add a lightweight package, which is quite nice as well. It's a bit more. But you think to yourself, okay, over 2 million rand, quite pricey for a vehicle. For a sports car of this caliber, I think it's actually a bit of a bargain, and I'll tell you why. More exotic than this, you have to go Ferrari, Lamborghini, you know, those kind of brands. And show me a Ferrari that costs 2 million rand. Doesn't exist. It's double, triple that. And how much more pleasure are you actually going to get out of that extra 2 or 3 million rand that you're spending? Sure, Ferraris maybe arguably the V8s have a nicer noise than this, subjectively speaking, but are you really 5%, maybe 10% more driving engagement? And the thing is, I think for the average driver, you're getting a bit more out of this because you've kind of got this safety net of the all-wheel drive. I suppose for me, personally speaking, the only downside to 911 ownership is that they're obviously a lot more common than all your other exotics. I mean, that just stands to reason. And also, the 911 shape to me hasn't changed forever, so it's not particularly special, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't deride it for doing that. I love that Porsche have stuck to and kept the car pure and kept the design pure. And it is an absolutely iconic shape, that's for sure. So GTS stands for Grand Tourer Sport, and I think that is possibly the most perfect description of this car. You can Grand Tour in this car comfortably. You'll enjoy it very, very much. And then when the road turns from highway to twisty mountain pass, then you get a sports car. And you get an absolute thoroughbred sports car and an absolutely thorough sports car experience. That is the uniqueness of this offering. I do think, and I know a lot of people have said this, it's almost becoming a cliche, but I do think this is the sweet spot in the Porsche range. I really do. I absolutely love this thing, in spite of myself. Thanks very much for watching. If you've just watched this video but you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, you absolutely should do that immediately right now. Click the subscribe button. It's a good idea for a bunch of reasons which I actually don't have really a lot of time to go into. But it's good. It's a good idea. Excellent. Thanks for watching. I said that already.
Budget insurance. Affordable because you can't afford not to.